Welcome back to my channel, Soulmate. Today I have an exciting sewing project and I'm so happy to guide you through the process of creating a lapel jacket ball gown for kids. My name is Ajulan. Thank you for stopping by. If you've ever wanted to tailor a garment that combines elegance and playfulness, this is it. But before we jump into the cutting and sewing business, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on any of my future sewing episodes. So let's get started. Here are the materials required to make this beautiful outfit. So here is my net, and this is a Duchess. This is my African print, and I also have my satin and of course my lining. So if you want, you can also add a hard net to the skirt part, or you can use your net to create the layers so that the dress will come out fluffy. So the first thing I'm going to do is to draft the pattern. So for this tutorial, I'm going to take it one step at a time so that even if you're a beginner, you can easily make this outfit. So we're going to draft two different bodice pattern, and then I'm going to start with the front side because that is the major that is the part that is very important. The back is always simple. So here I have my plain pattern. Here you can see that I have some lines already drawn out, so I'm going to explain the lines that I have here. Okay, so this is the shoulder line and this is the waistline. This pattern is going to be for a 4-year-old. So if you have a 4-year-old that is not chubby, that is not on the plus size, you can use this. Okay, but if you want to make this for any other age, you can also follow the process but work with your own measurement. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to mark out the armhole line, and this is my button allowance. After marking out the bodice length, which is what I have here, this is my bodice length, you're going to mark out your button allowance. For this I am using 1 inch as the button allowance. So the first one I'm drafting now is the V neckline bodice pattern. Okay, so I have 1 inch as my button allowance, and then this is the bodice length. So for the bodice length, it is 9.5 plus 1 inch for both the shoulder and waist sewing allowance, making it 10.5. So I just remove my ½ inch here separate for the shoulder allowance, and then ½ inch here separate for the waist sewing allowance. So the next thing to do is to mark out my armhole or the chest line. So to do that, I'm going to use my shoulder slope to determine what to mark out as the chest line measurement. Now for this, for 4 years upward, you can use 0.75 as the shoulder slope, but 3 years down you can use ½ inch, is still okay. So if I am using 0.75 as the shoulder slope, and then remember I said in my previous video that you can divide your shoulder measurement by 2 and use that as the chest line or the armhole line. Now the shoulder measurement for this is 9.5. If I divide by 2, it's going to give me 4.75. Okay, so all I need to do is to add the 0.75 shoulder slope to that. Whatever I have there, that is what I am going to be marking out now as the chest line. You can see that it's very easy to calculate. This way you will not end up wasting your pattern paper. Okay, so I'll just add it up now and connect to a straight line. Alright, if I add the two, I'm going to have 5.5, that is 5.5. So I'll just go ahead and mark the point and then connect to a straight line. Like I said, I am taking my time so that even if you're a beginner, you can easily make this dress. Okay, so this is now the chest line or the armhole line. So I'll go ahead and mark the shoulder measurement. Now the shoulder measurement, like I said before, is 9.5. If you divide that by 2, it is 4.75, which is here. Okay, now you can see that I am marking from this one, not the one on top. Remember that this is my sewing allowance, so you need to mark from the actual shoulder line, which is this one down. So this is my 4.75. then I added added ¼ inch just for the armhole sewing allowance. Always remember to do that. So I have 5 inches there. Then the next thing to do is to mark out the neck width and the neck depth. But before that, I'll come to this point now and mark out the 0.75 that I'm using as the shoulder slope. So this is the point. Okay, then after that I'll now decide what to use as the shoulder width. So for the shoulder width, I'll just go with 2 1/4. If you want, you can also go with 2 1/2. That is if you want the neckline area to be very open. This part is up to you. Okay, now for the depth, you can decide how deep or high you want this area to be, because this is going to be a V neckline. But before that, I'm going to connect this point. I'm going to create the armhole curve. That way I'll now decide where to mark or what to use as the neck depth. Okay, so now I'm going to, whatever I did here, like I have 5 inches there, I'm going to take it down to this armhole line and connect. You should be familiar with this by now if you're a returning subscriber. So I'll just connect. Okay, now if you follow this method, you at the end of the day you will notice that this armhole area is going to be free for the child to play around. But if you don't want it to be free, if you want it to be very tight, it's up to you. Okay, so now this is what I have. I'm going to create the curve now by marking out, getting the midpoint and then going in by 1/2 inch. I'll just fold this into 2 and then mark the point. And just fold your tape this way just to get the midpoint. This one will save you time. So this is the midpoint. So there I'll go in by just 1/2 inch to create the curve. Alright, and then to get the curve, you're going to mark out the chest measurement. Now for this age, the chest measurement is 23 inches. If you divide that by 4, I will have 5.75. You can see that I am placing my tape on this line, not on this edge. This is my button allowance. Your tape should not reach to this end. So this is the point, and then I'm going to add my 0.75 side sewing allowance. For this part, you can also use 1/2 or 1 inch depending on what you prefer to use. Okay, so I'll just go ahead now and curve that to get the armhole curve, and we're almost done with this first part. So I'll just curve this in. So now I have this curved in. I can now decide where I want the V neckline to either start or end. So I'll come over to this chest line now, and then I'll just go up by either 2 inches or 1 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to make this 2 inches. I don't want the chest area to be too open. This is for a little girl, so I'll just go ahead and use 2 inches. That is from the chest line. Okay, so this is now the new point. So I'll just take my ruler now and give it that V neckline. If you don't want it to be a straight V, you can still use this just to curve it in a bit. If you don't want it to be a straight V, you can just use this and curve that in. I think I'll go with this just to give it another beautiful look. So this is what I have now. So I'll go ahead and extend it all the way down, okay, because we'll be cutting this part off. Alright, so this is what I have. I'll come down to the waist area now and mark the waist measurement. The waist measurement is 22 divided by 4 is 5 1/2 plus my 0.75 side sewing allowance, which is this. You can see that this first pattern is ready. So I am going to mark out another pattern. That is where we are going to be creating the lapel for the next pattern. Now you can see that this one is ready. So all I need to do now is to come to this shoulder area. You can see what I have now. So on this part, I'll just mark my 1/2 inch. Following that shape, you're going to mark the shoulder sewing allowance. This is 1/2, and then cut this one out and it's ready. Remember that the armhole area, I've already added my sewing allowance on that part, so I'll not be adding any one again. Okay, now if you follow this method, you are going to have a very good detailing after sewing. Okay, so this is it. Now the first pattern, the v-neck pattern, is ready. This is the front. Remember, I am taking this one at a time. So let me just quickly cut this and then take my second pattern so we can draft the lapel jacket. Alright, here I have another pattern paper, and you can see I just marked out the body's length. And remember that we're working with 10.5, including our sewing allowance. So I have the 10.5 marked out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do now is to mark out what I'll be using as the lapel and the button allowance. So I'm going to mark out 4 inches first. It's not as if I'm going to use all this, so I'll just mark out 4 inches. Okay, this will serve as both the lapel and button allowance. You know, the button allowance is needed on this one so that your lapel can easily overlap each other on the waist area. Okay, and then by next year we're going to be having our first online crash course where you're going to learn how to make different kinds of blazer jacket ball gown, whether a short collar or a notch collar. We are going to be learning so many in that class, but that will be coming up by February next year. Okay, so after marking this out, from this part now I'll go ahead and mark out, you know, the normal pattern, the same thing I did on this one. We're going to mark that here, so you can easily use your tape and place if you can't remember what you use. So this is 5 point, almost 6 inches. So just go ahead and mark that out. That is the chest line. Okay, just mark everything out, then mark out the armhole curve. Just everything you did on this first one, aside from the button allowance, just mark them all out. This way is going to be easy. So this is my chest line. I'll just connect it straight. Okay, then I'll come over and mark out the shoulder measurement. Remember that it's 5 inches, including the armhole sewing allowance. I'll also bring it down here, 5 inches, and we're using 0.75 as the shoulder slope. So this is the point, and then I use 2 for the neck width. I think I use 2.25. Okay, which is here. Okay, so we just connect. I'm just trying to create the pattern, that is the armhole curve, before we now draft out the lapel. Okay, so I'll just take this down to create the armhole curve. You can see that I'm taking this one at a time. All right, then I'll go ahead and create the curve. But then I need to mark out the chest measurements just to get the curve. Okay, this is the sewing allowance. This is exactly what I did on the first one. So I'll just get the midpoint here, and I'll go in by 1/2 inch, and then we'll create the curve. I'm rushing this part because it's the same thing I did in the first one. So I'll just curve this. Okay, so now to the main business of today, which is the lapel. So to do that, I am going to use, for the neck depth, I'll use 1.75 for this, and then I'm going to mark the button allowance now. Remember that I'm using 1 inch. Okay, so I'll go ahead and mark that out from here. Now you see why I left enough allowance to accommodate anything I want to use on this part. So this is my button allowance first. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and, you know, this line, I'm going to, this point, which is 1.75, I'm going to mark it here as well. So this is the point. Okay, so I'm going to connect it now and take it all the way down to that point. This is the new neckline. So I'll just connect. Okay, now on this part, if you don't want it to be too open, you can make it 2 inches, but I want the neck width for this to match with the one I have here, because at the end of the day we're going to be joining the two together on this front side, so I want it to match. Okay, so I'll just extend the neckline to this point like this. Okay, so now after doing that, I am going to decide what to use now as the lapel. So I'll go ahead, and now for this part, it all depends on how wide you want your lapel to be. So for you to do that, you can just place your tape from this line. You know, this is the actual body's center front now. So you can place your tape there to decide how wide you want your lapel to be. Whether 3 inches, 2.5, 2 inches is up to you, or even wider than that. So I'll go with 3 inches, which is exactly what I have here. Okay, it's not to 3 inches. So okay, it's 3 inches, which is exactly what I have here. So all I need to do is to extend it. This line, I'll just take it all the way down to that point. So I'll go ahead and mark the same 1.75 and then connect it straight. Okay, now you can see what I have there. So after connecting it straight now, I will go ahead now and curve, mark it all the way to come and meet up to this button allowance here. This part, you can decide to curve it or leave it straight, but for this I'll just leave it straight. I will not curve it. So just connect it straight, and we are almost done with this part. You can see that it's very easy. All you need to do is just to take your time, and then you'll get it right. So these parts depend on how wide or small you want your lapel to be. So I'll come down to this other side to mark out the waist measurement. So I'll just place my tape here. The waist measurement is 22, which is 5.5, and then I'll add my 0.75 sewing allowance and then connect, and this pattern is ready. All you need to do is to add your necessary sewing allowance. So I'm going to mark my 1/2 inch shoulder sewing allowance here, following the shape. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and mark that and then connect it back. So this is what I have. I'll go ahead and cut this out now so I can show you how to cut the back pattern. For the back pattern, like I said, is very easy. So let me just quickly cut this so we can continue. For the back pattern, you can see that I just marked out my zipper allowance. Okay, so we're going to be adding a zipper to this, so I'll just repeat what I did with the front one, but this is going to be a little different because the shoulder slope, remember I said for the back, is going to be 1/2 inch. So that is just the exception for this back side. So I'm going to do that now. So that is 1/2 inch plus, remember that we're using half of the shoulder measurement, which is 4.75. Okay, so I'm going to add this now to know what to use as the neck, the chest line. So I'll just quickly do that. You can see what I did, it's just the same thing. Then I'm going to check what I have now from there, that is 5.5, and then I'll connect that straight. So this is my chest line now, and then for the neck width is going to be the same with the front, while the neck depth is going to be just 1/2 inch. That is just the difference with this back one. So I'll quickly mark out the shoulder measurement. Remember that we're working with 5 inches, including the armhole sewing allowance. So on that area, I'll just mark the 1/2 inch shoulder slope, and I'm using 2.25 for the neck width. Remember I said this back one is going to be just 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'll go ahead and connect the necessary, all the points. I'll just connect them together to create the armhole curve. Alright, like I said earlier, this back pattern is very easy. The normal way we draft your basic body's back pattern, it is the same way. Okay, so I'll just get the armhole line now. So this is the chest measurement plus my side sewing allowance, and then here I'm going to get the midpoint and go in. For this back I'll go in by 1/4 inch. You know, I will not be adding a sleeve, it's just going to be like a cold shoulder, so the sleeve will not be coming up from the shoulder area, so it's just like halfway. So you can just decide either to do this or skip this part, just connect straight to the line, or you do what I'm doing, is up to you. But I normally go in by 1/4 inch. It's going to give the back area a very nice shape. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and connect. Okay, so I'll just connect. After connecting now, I'm going to do the same on this part. I'll just go ahead and connect. Okay, so this is where we are after connecting. So I'll go ahead now and mark out the waist measurement, which is 5.5 plus my 0.75 sewing allowance, and then connect. And then we're going to remove 1/2 inch on this waist area. Remember how we used to do that if you're a returning subscriber. This will allow the dress to sit perfectly well on the back side. So to do that, since I already marked out my 1/2 inch waist sewing allowance, I'll just follow the 1/2 inch now as it is. So I'll just place my ruler. You can see this is the 1/2 inch there, just this way to meet up to this edge. Okay, so we'll be cutting off this part. Okay, so this will allow the dress, you know, the back is not straight like the front side, is a little curvy, so you need to minus this 1/2 inch here so that the dress will sit will be perfectly okay on that back side. So this is it. I'll just mark my shoulder sewing allowance, you know, and connect. So I'll just quickly do this part and then cut this on our fabric and show you how to stitch this neatly. Okay, this is another important aspect of sewing, having a very detailed and clean work. So I'll just show you how to do that. Let me just quickly cut this out and then cut on my fabric so we can finish up the dress. Here you can see I have all my fabric cut out, and then you can see that this one with the lapel, I am using the yellow satin as the lining because I want my yellow satin to be showing by the time I turn it over like this after sewing. Okay, I don't want this to have any joining. I would have just maybe divide into two, use white and then plus the yellow, but I don't want to have any joining on this part. That's why I am using my yellow all through. So the first thing to do is to sew the neckline. You can see this is the V1, the V neckline and the lining, and this is the back one with the lining. So the first sewing to do is this one with lapel. So the first thing to do is to stitch it from this neckline all the way down to the waistline using the sewing allowance that you added, and then I'm going to repeat the same on this other side and then give it a very good press. Now the sewing part is very easy. All you need to do is to follow the way you cut. You know, your pattern drafting is the most important aspect of any form of dress making. Once you get your pattern right, the sewing is very easy. So I'll just quickly stitch this and get to this end, and then I'll do the same on this one that is going to have the button. Okay, I'll still sew the neckline and of course the button area. You can see that I'm still leaving the shoulder area open. So I'll just quickly do this and then show you how to join the back side to it, so you can have a very neat sewing at the end of the day. Alright, after sewing them, this is what I have. This is the back. Remember I said that I'm going to sew only the neckline, leaving the shoulder side open. So this is for the back and this is the front. This is the front one, and I did the same. The shoulder area is still open. Then this is the one with the lapel. Now I'm going to be placing it over like this for this side. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same for this second one. You can see that I sew everything separately, then you turn it over the way you want it to be. Okay, now remember that there's going to be a button here, so you need to close it up. This is what I'll have at the end of the day before placing this on top. All right, so as you're sewing, you can easily adjust. If you don't want your lapel to be too bold, you can easily adjust that when you are sewing. So this is what I have. You can see that it is exactly the same thing. So this is where I'll be putting my button. Now I'm going to be closing these parts. Remember I said it's going to have a cold shoulder sleeve. So I'm going to close this. You can just use your sewing machine and close it a bit. Remember that you need to separate the inner, that is the v-neck one. Now the lining should be separated, and then you're repeating the same. I will not be doing that. I'll just join it together with the back, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I only ask you to sew if you know you can maintain or keep it the way it should be. So this is it. I'll take the back one. You can see what I'm doing, making sure that the front is facing each other. This is two here and this is the back one. Now I'm going to remove the lining of the back one, and then the lining of the V pattern, or that is the front one that has the V. We're going to remove the lining too, and then this is how I'll just place it. Make sure that this line here matches with the other ones, and then close up the shoulder area. By the time you turn, you will see you have it very okay and how it should be. Everything will just align neatly. So I'll repeat the same on this other one. I'm going to repeat the same thing and join it together. After joining, you can now attach your cold shoulder sleeve, and you can see that this is very easy and simple to make. So that is it for today. I believe you were able to grab one or two things from today's tutorial, so please try and recreate it, and I will see you all in my